My name is Lola D. Whitley. I am 29 years old, and for 5 years I thought I was saving my family. What I did not understand was that I was teaching them they could take everything from me and still call me selfish for asking to be seen. I had been installing solar panels in the Arizona sun since I was 24. Phoenix heat does not forgive anyone. It bakes your skin through long sleeves, turns rooftops into griddles, and makes every workday feel like a test of whether your body will quit before your pride does. I started as a basic installer, making $18 an hour, carrying equipment, burning my hands on metal brackets, and proving I was not afraid of hard work. By the time I became a crew chief, I was making $75,000 a year and managing teams across commercial and residential projects. I was proud of that. Not loud proud, quiet proud. The kind of pride you keep in your chest because you know exactly what it cost. My best friend, Jay, had watched the whole thing happen. He owned an automotive shop, looked like he was built out of steel, and had no patience for people who smiled while bleeding you dry. "Lola," he told me more than once, "you're like a financial hostage who keeps thanking the kidnappers." I used to laugh because it was easier than admitting he was right. The only other creature who seemed to judge my family accurately was my cat, Larry, a fat orange tabby who had been with me for 3 years. Larry hated fake people. He would stare at my family with the kind of disgust most humans are too polite to show. The disaster began in 2019 when my dad, Rick, got laid off. My parents were 3 months behind on the mortgage. Foreclosure papers had already been filed. They had 60 days to come up with $4,200 in back payments and penalties, or they were out. My mother, Linda, cried on the phone like the world had personally betrayed her. My father said his back was too damaged to work. My older sister, Josie, said losing the house would destroy the family. So I did what I thought a good daughter was supposed to do. I bought the house outright for $180,000. I emptied my savings, took a small personal loan, and liquidated my 401k early with penalties. The deed went in my name for legal and tax reasons, but I told them they could stay and gradually pay me back. They never paid me back $1. Not one. Over the next 4 years, I paid the property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. A new roof after hail damage. A new HVAC unit when the old one died during a heat wave. Plumbing repairs from tree roots, garage door replacement, exterior paint. Everything came out of my pocket while they acted like I was lucky they lived there. I rented a small 1-bedroom apartment for myself while paying expenses on a house I could not even use. I postponed buying my own home. I drove the same aging truck. I watched my savings hover near zero while they lived mortgage-free in a neighborhood they could never afford on their own, and they still complained. Rick spent 12 hours a day rebuilding his 1,985 Camaro in my garage while insisting he was too injured to work. Linda worked maybe 15 hours a week at a beauty salon called Sheer Perfection, then came home exhausted from gossiping. Josie bounced between schools, jobs, and dreams. She had tried Arizona State, community college, design courses, call centers, restaurants, and whatever else she could quit within 6 months. Now she was building her brand as a freelance graphic designer, which meant she made about $200 a month designing ugly logos for friends who paid late. The worst part was not the money. It was the humiliation. Josie would invite friends over and joke that I was the family ATM. Rick complained that I micromanaged repairs in his house. Linda told her sisters I was controlling because I questioned why she wanted a $15,000 kitchen renovation paid with money I did not have. Then New Year's Eve came. The 31st of December 2023. I stood at the front door with my arms full of groceries and party supplies I had bought for their celebration. Arizona was in a cold snap, and the air was sharp enough to hurt my fingers through the plastic bags. Linda opened the door. Her face went blank. "You must have the wrong house," she said. I stared at her. "Mom, it's me. I don't know who you are." Then she started closing the door. I held up the bags. "Are you serious? I bought all the food and drinks for tonight. We don't need your charity, she snapped. The door slammed in my face. For 10 minutes, I stood outside in the cold while music and laughter spilled through the windows. I could smell barbecue from the backyard. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Josie. Don't take it personal. Mom said you weren't invited this year. Positive energy only. Maybe find friends your own age. Then I heard Rick through the window. Maybe now she'll learn that throwing money around doesn't make her family. Josie laughed. She's 29 and still trying to buy our love. It's pathetic. That was when everything inside me went quiet. I owned the roof over their heads. I owned the walls around them. I owned the foundation they were standing on while they laughed at me. And suddenly, I knew exactly what had to happen next. I almost drove home and let the humiliation swallow me in private. Instead, I called Jay from the driveway, still holding bags of groceries like an idiot. They locked me out, I said. There was a pause, then his voice turned sharp. Lola, get over here right now. Jay's family lived 20 minutes away in a warm, noisy house where people actually looked happy to see each other. When I walked in carrying groceries and champagne, his mother Carol rushed toward me like I had arrived from a battlefield. Lola, why are you bringing food? We have plenty. Then she saw my face. Jay told me. Those people are insane. Carol had been like a second mother to me since high school. Her house always smelled like garlic, fresh bread, and safety. It was the opposite of the door that had just been slammed in my face. Jay handed me a drink. So let me understand this, he said. You bought food for their party, showed up at your own house, and they pretended not to know you. Pretty much. He laughed, but not cruelly. More like the situation had finally become too ridiculous to process. Lola, this is a messed up prank that has lasted 4 years. His father, Tony, a retired construction worker, shook his head while seasoning steaks. If someone saved my house from foreclosure, he said, I'd kiss their feet, not lock them out on New Year's. Jay's younger sister, Maria, was a paralegal who handled real estate documents. When I explained the deed was in my name, she stopped eating. Wait, she said. You own the house, pay all the expenses, and they think they can lock you out? They think I'm just helping. Maria leaned back slowly. No, Lola. They're tenants without a lease. Legally, you have options. That was the first time the word options felt real. At midnight, Jay raised the champagne I had bought for my family. To Lola, he said, who is about to learn the difference between family and people who share her DNA. Everyone clinked glasses. I smiled, but my hands were shaking. The next morning I sat in my apartment with coffee, Larry watching from my desk like a disappointed judge. I researched Arizona landlord-tenant laws until my eyes burned. People living in a property without a lease could be treated as tenants at will. With proper notice, I could demand rent or possession. Jay came over around noon with breakfast sandwiches. So, he said, dropping into a chair, did you sleep on it like a rational adult? Or are we going full nuclear? I looked at the papers on my laptop. Full nuclear. Jay grinned. That afternoon, I contacted a lawyer named Anastasia Pierce. She had terrifying reviews from landlords who had dealt with nightmare tenants. Her office was dark wood, legal books, and silence designed to make people confess things. She was barely taller than me, but her presence filled the room. So you own the house, she said, reading my documents. They have lived there for 4 years without paying rent, and they don't realize you are the legal owner. That's correct, she smiled. This is going to be fun. 2 days later, the notice was ready. Linda Whitley, Rick Whitley, and Josie Whitley had 30 days to vacate or pay $1,000 a month under a formal rental agreement. Anastasia said the rent option made me look reasonable in court. We both knew they probably could not afford it. January 3rd, I drove to the house with Jay and a process server. Rick opened the door in a bathrobe, looking annoyed until he saw the stranger beside me. What is this, Lola? The process server stepped forward. Richard Whitley, you are being served legal notice regarding this property. Rick took the papers. His face lost color line by line. Linda rushed over and grabbed them. This has to be fake, she said. We own this house. Josie appeared behind them, already angry. You can't just invent legal papers because you're mad about New Year's. I kept my voice calm. Check the county records. My name has been on the deed since 2019. Josie laughed too loudly. That's impossible. No, I said. What's impossible is living in someone else's house for free while treating her like a stranger at the door. Jay stepped forward, arms crossed. Threatening the property owner is not a smart legal strategy. They did not listen. Within hours, my phone exploded. Aunt Carol cried that I was throwing family into the street. Cousin Jenny texted about loyalty. Uncle Jim left a voicemail saying he was disappointed in the woman I had become. Linda's version was simple. I was trying to steal their house with fake documents because I was jealous of their stable family life. Then Uncle Samuel called. Samuel was Rick's older brother, a master plumber who had built his business from nothing and had no patience for laziness. Lola, he said, tell me what really happened. So I did. He listened silently. Then he started laughing. You mean Rick has been complaining about being controlled by his daughter while living rent-free in her house? Yes, kid, he said, still laughing. You should have done this years ago. For the first time in days, I breathed. Because one person in my family finally saw the truth. But Rick, Linda, and Josie were not finished. They hired a lawyer, and they were about to learn that a locked door feels very different when the law is standing on the other side. The hearing was scheduled for January 25th at 10 in the morning. I showed up in my best suit with Anastasia beside me, and a folder full of proof, the deed, purchase documents, tax records, insurance policies, maintenance receipts, bank statements. Every dollar I had spent over 4 years sat neatly organized in paper form. Rick, Linda, and Josie arrived with their lawyer, Martin Goldberg. Josie wore a blazer like she was the CEO of a company that did not exist. Rick looked furious. Linda looked wounded, which was always her favorite costume. Judge Martinez looked annoyed before anyone even spoke. Martin tried to argue adverse possession. He said my family had lived there for 15 years and had made meaningful improvements. Anastasia stayed calm. She presented the purchase agreement showing I had paid $180,000 to stop foreclosure. She showed the deed in my name. She showed 4 years of taxes, insurance, repairs, and expenses, all paid by me. Martin had nothing. No proof of ownership. No lease. No receipts. No legal claim. Just the idea that they deserved the house because they had lived in it longer. Judge Martinez did not hide her irritation. Mr. Goldberg, she said, your clients do not meet the requirements for adverse possession. Miss Whitley is the legal owner. The motion is denied. Defendants have 30 days to vacate. Josie jumped up. This is corrupt. You can't just steal our house. The bailiff stepped forward. Judge Martinez looked over her glasses. Speak again without permission, and you will be removed. Outside the courtroom, Josie screamed about betrayal while Rick cursed under his breath and Linda cried into tissues she had clearly brought for effect. I felt nothing at first. Then, in the parking lot, my knees almost gave out. Jay was waiting by my truck. Well? He asked. We won. He hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. That night, Uncle Samuel called. I heard court went exactly how it should have, he said. They're saying I destroyed the family. No, Samuel replied. They destroyed the lie that kept them comfortable. After losing in court, reality finally started pressing down on them. Rentals in the area were expensive. They needed deposits, steady income, references. They had none of that. On February 1st, Linda called me with a trembling voice. Lola, honey, we've been looking everywhere. Everything decent is $1,200 or more. We don't have first month, last month, and deposit. I put the phone on speaker. Jay was there helping me organize paperwork, and Larry sat between us like he had been summoned for judgment. That sounds like a personal problem, I said. Linda went quiet. Please, she whispered. Can we rent from you? We just need a chance to prove we can be good tenants. The irony was so thick I could barely speak. After years of living free. After locking me out, after trying to legally steal the house, now they wanted to become my tenants. I gave them one option, $1,000 a month. First month due February 10th. Month-to-month lease. If you miss rent or cause trouble, I terminate the agreement. Rick got on the phone. Lola, this whole thing got out of hand, but we're family. We can make this work. No, I said. This is not family anymore. This is business. Josie tried next. What if we did 800? We just spent money on a lawyer. You spent money trying to take my house, I said. That is not my problem. They signed the lease February 8th at Anastasia's office. The whole meeting was painful. Josie made snide comments about every clause. Rick complained about the rent. Linda asked who would pay utilities as if she had not been living off my money for years. Anastasia remained professional, but I saw the edge of satisfaction in her smile. February 10th came. No payment. February 12th, Linda called with excuses. Rick's disability application was pending. Josie's client had not paid her. They just needed until the 15th. Jay mouthed, called it. Larry knocked a pen off the coffee table. On February 15th, still nothing. Rick called with his usual authority. We need to talk about this rent situation. 1,000 is unrealistic given our circumstances. You signed the lease, I said. Be reasonable. We're family. We're not family, I said. You made that clear. You are tenants who are not paying rent. After 20 days of excuses, Anastasia filed the second eviction. The March 1st hearing was shorter and uglier. Judge Martinez looked genuinely disgusted to see them again. So, she said, same property, same defendants? Anastasia stood. Yes, Your Honor. They signed a rental lease and failed to pay the first month's rent. Josie could not stop herself. This is retaliation. She's punishing us because we fought for our rights. The judge turned to her. You attempted to take property you did not own. You lost. Then you signed a lease and failed to pay. That is not retaliation. That is consequence. Judgment was granted. 7 days to vacate. Not 30. 7. When the gavel came down, Linda sobbed. Rick stared at the floor. Josie looked at me like I had ruined her life instead of refusing to keep funding it. But the real ruin had not even started yet. Because once they lost the house, Josie's lies began to unravel in ways none of us expected. 2 weeks after they were forced out, I was at my apartment when someone pounded on my door hard enough to make Larry bolt under the couch. I opened it to find a massive man standing there. Tattoos covered both arms. His jaw was clenched. He looked like the kind of person who did not knock twice. You Lola Whitley? He asked. Who wants to know? Name's Marcus. I'm looking for your sister, Josie. She owes me money. My stomach tightened. Josie doesn't live here, he frowned. She told me she lived in that nice house with her family. Showed me pictures. Said she had steady design work and just needed a short-term loan. How much? $5,000. The hallway seemed to tilt. Marcus explained that Josie had borrowed the money for high-end design equipment and software licenses. She had shown him photos of the house, the garage, the driveway, even Rick's Camaro, presenting it all as proof that she came from a stable, successful family. My house, my property, my sacrifice. Used as scenery for her lie. She said she'd pay me back in 30 days, Marcus said. Now I find out she's homeless, and her business is fake. After he left, I called Jay. He was silent for about 3 seconds, then said, Your sister used your house as collateral for a scam. 2 days later, Josie called from an unknown number. Her voice was panicked. Lola, I need your help. I almost laughed. There's a guy named Marcus looking for me, she said. He's serious. He came here. You borrowed $5,000 using my house as proof you were stable. I was desperate. You lied. I thought I could pay him back after I landed a big client. Josie, you made $200 in 6 months. She started crying, but it sounded rehearsed. Please, just help me this once. I'll pay you back. You have never paid anyone back. Her voice sharpened. So you're just going to let me get arrested? No, I said. You did that yourself. Marcus was not the only one. Over the next few weeks, more details came out. Josie had borrowed from at least 3 other people. The total was over $12,000. She had used pictures of my house, my garage, and my driveway to make herself look successful. She told people she had corporate design clients. She told them she lived in a family property. She told them money was coming. It was all fiction. Uncle Samuel called when he heard. That girl finally turned entitlement into a criminal record, he said. This is not family drama anymore, Lola. This is fraud. He was right. 2 months later, Josie was arrested. She eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and theft by deception. She got probation, restitution orders, and a record that would follow her longer than any logo she had ever designed. Linda blamed me. Rick blamed me. Aunt Carol said I should have helped Josie before things went that far, but nobody said Josie should not have lied. Nobody said Josie should not have stolen trust from strangers using my life as evidence. Rick spiraled next. After being kicked out, he stayed with Uncle Paul for a while, but that ended when he complained constantly, refused to help around the house, and treated Paul's guest room like permanent housing. When Paul told him to leave, Rick tried to break in later to retrieve things he claimed were his. The neighbors called the police. My father was arrested for trespassing. Linda bounced between relatives until everyone got tired of hearing how ungrateful I was, while she asked them for money. Eventually, she ended up in a women's shelter, telling anyone who would listen that her daughter had abandoned her. For a while, the guilt tried to crawl back into me. Late at night, I would imagine Linda sitting alone somewhere, Rick humiliated, Josie with court dates and fines. Then I would remember the door closing in my face. I would remember the laughter through the window. I would remember standing in the cold with groceries I had paid for, while they celebrated freedom from the woman funding their lives, and the guilt would turn into clarity. Jay moved into the house as a tenant. The first month, he paid early. The second month, he fixed a loose fence panel and sent me pictures before touching anything. He asked permission before painting the garage. He replaced broken cabinet hinges, cleaned the gutters, and treated the house like it mattered because he understood it did. For the first time, that house was not a wound. It was an asset again. Uncle Samuel became the voice of reason in the family. Every time someone tried to defend Rick, Linda, or Josie, he shut it down with facts. Lola saved that house, he told them. Rick wasted his chance. Linda enabled him. Josie committed fraud. And Lola is the only one who acted like an adult. Hearing someone say it out loud changed something in me. I had spent years waiting for my family to admit I had done enough. Now I no longer needed them to. The truth had finally become louder than their version of the story. By spring, the family had rewritten the story so many times that even they seemed confused by their own lies. In one version, I had stolen the house. In another, I had tricked my parents into signing it over. In Josie's favorite version, I had destroyed her business because I was jealous of her creativity and freedom. Linda told people I had changed after making money. Rick told people I had been poisoned by Jay and his family. But facts are stubborn things. The deed was mine. The payments were mine. The repairs were mine. The years of sacrifice were mine. And the consequences were theirs. Jay became the perfect tenant. He paid $1,200 a month without being asked twice. He took care of the lawn, kept the garage organized, and called me before making even small changes. The house looked better within 2 months than it had in the entire time my family lived there for free. One evening, I stopped by after work and found Jay replacing a broken porch light. "You know you don't have to fix everything yourself," I said. He glanced down from the ladder. "I know. But when someone trusts you with something they worked hard for, you respect it." That sentence hit harder than I expected. For 5 years, I had begged my own family to understand that. Jay understood it without being asked. Uncle Samuel visited the house one Saturday and laughed when he saw the improvements. "Looks like the place finally got a responsible adult," he said. Then he looked at me more softly. You did the right thing, Lola. I wanted to say I knew that already. But the truth was, some part of me still needed to hear it. Josie's legal situation got worse before it stabilized. She pleaded guilty to fraud and theft by deception. She received probation, restitution orders, and mandatory financial counseling. Her freelance design empire vanished overnight. The people she had borrowed from were not interested in her excuses, and the court was even less impressed by her claims that she had been under emotional stress. Rick moved from couch to couch until people stopped answering his calls. The arrest for trespassing humiliated him, but not enough to make him take responsibility. He still blamed me. He said I had made him desperate. He said daughters were supposed to protect their fathers, not expose them. Linda lasted with relatives for a while, but her complaints wore everyone down. She kept telling people I had abandoned her. Yet every person she stayed with eventually learned what it felt like to be treated like an unpaid servant. Sympathy faded quickly once it came with utility bills and constant criticism. The strangest part was how peaceful my life became once I stopped trying to repair theirs. My apartment felt lighter. My work felt easier. Larry stopped hiding whenever my phone rang. Jay and I spent more time together, first over paperwork and repairs, then dinners, then quiet evenings where neither of us had to explain why silence felt safe. I had known him since high school, but I had never really seen the way he showed up until everything fell apart. One night, after helping me sort through another box of old documents, he looked at me and said, "You know they were wrong, right?" I nodded. He shook his head. "No, I mean really wrong. You weren't hard to love. They just hated that loving you meant respecting you." I cried then. Not dramatically, just quietly, sitting on my kitchen floor while Larry pressed against my leg. Months later, Jay and I got engaged. It was small and private, nothing like the loud family celebrations I used to think I needed. Uncle Samuel came. Carol cried. Tony grilled steaks. Maria joked that she would personally review every wedding contract before I signed anything. Jay raised a glass and smiled at me. "To Lola," he said, "who stopped paying rent in other people's guilt." Everyone laughed, but I felt the truth of it settle deep. I had spent years confusing sacrifice with love. I thought if I gave enough, paid enough, fixed enough, rescued enough, eventually my family would look at me and say I mattered. They never did. So I said it to myself. I mattered when I was standing on rooftops in the Arizona heat. I mattered when I emptied my savings to save a house. I mattered when I stood in the cold with groceries in my arms. I mattered when I served the eviction notice. I mattered when I finally stopped begging people to respect what they were determined to exploit. The last time I heard from Linda, she left a voicemail saying I would regret choosing property over family. I deleted it, because I had not chosen property over family. I had chosen peace over abuse. I had chosen truth over manipulation. I had chosen a future where love did not require me to bleed financially and call it loyalty. Some bridges need to be burned. Not because you hate the people on the other side, but because they keep crossing over just to take more from you. My name is Lola D. Whitley. I own my house. I own my story. And for the first time in my life, nobody gets to lock me out of either one.